My partner, at some period of time, had embezzled almost $1 million from the business. And we left some major brands blowing in the wind, and he disappeared. And I could have done two things at that time, and I felt like doing it. Believe me, this is not some heroic story, but I could either crawl into a hole, turn off my phones, disappear, or I can face the decision again that I made. No one else is responsible for the success or failure of the business than me. And as the CEO and founder of my company, I felt the obligation and the reality, it was my fault, but I made a decision to do business with this person. They embezzled. And so I decided to face the music. I will tell you, 2.5 years later, I felt like I'm bulletproof when it comes to dealing with these kind of situations. Because I did the scary thing, I did the hard thing, but I did the right thing.
So for today's show, we have John Largent here, and you and I have met through C-Suite Network. Do you want to share a little bit with the audience before we get started about yourself and how you started Largent Media, especially what made you choose the name Largent Media?
Yeah, I'll give my history on a bumper sticker, as we say down here in Texas. I'll be quick about it. But my background's actually in healthcare administration. So for 27 years, I worked in some form or fashion as a administrator in hospitals, home health organizations. I owned a chain of diagnostic sleep centers for a while. So I've been in the healthcare space, and then back in probably 2007, I really wanted to do something different. And I heard about this new thing called podcasting. There were maybe 12 people listening to podcasts at that time, but I saw an opportunity and started producing podcasts for myself around things that I enjoyed, food, sports, and things like that. And over time, people said, "Hey, what's this podcast thing that you're doing? And you think you could help me with mine?" And over time, I realized, hey, there's an opportunity here to branch off into something other than healthcare. And here we are 16 years later, I think, if I'm doing my math correct. We've been doing this since 2007 and as a company, and changed the name from Game Day Media to Largent Media. And we talked about that briefly off air, but I'll share that with you. And we worked primarily around sports and sporting events. So we did everything from the Super Bowl to the Kentucky Derby. It was really a great opportunity to see the country and meet people that were very passionate about different things. They were, their sporting teams and things like that. And I got to a place where the name had a good reputation, and I've always prided myself on fanatical customer service and client services. And it's like, if you feel that strongly about it, put your name on the company. And I actually did. We made the change back in 2019, right before COVID. And so we had that weird time during COVID to really rebrand everything, and came out the other end of COVID stronger as a brand, and it's really allowed us to do some really great things. And
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that story too. So, my audience is an audience of leaders, both corporate leaders and CEOs of smaller businesses. And I think this will speak to them because, the way you choose your company name, that's no small fit. It's not nothing. I'm wondering, how does it drive your decision making or the way you set your vision for your business, knowing that your name is, front and center?
I think that, first of all, it's a great question. I think for me, everything is much more measured. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I was a ready, fire, aim kind of guy. Let's just do it. Let's just plow through it and make it happen. And when you change, when you mature and grow as an adult, that is in a leadership position, it also allows you to be more thoughtful on the decisions that you made, and sometimes the most thoughtful decision is no in decisions that you make. And so I take a really measured approach because I'm really conscientious about how certain decisions that are made are going to affect the company, but from a perception standpoint and a brand, and you mentioned the C-suite network, a brand, according to Jeffrey Hazlett, who is the founder and CEO of C-suite and was the global CMO at Kodak, Eastman Kodak. A brand is nothing more than a promise kept and a promise delivered. And so when you have your name on your service that you provide, it is all about delivering that promise.
Yeah. Now I'm just curious, is there a moment where that you can remember where you were in a high stakes scenario, something that um was challenging you in a way that ignited that transformation? Since we're about on the shift, but I'm wondering what made you make that transformation.
Well, Karina, I will tell you, I had a very, very profound shift, very profound. So, in the previous iteration of the business, before we changed names, I had a business partner, and we were doing marketing activation tours across the country. So, just picture a brand, and I'll keep the brands out to protect the situation at the time, but we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, $1 million tours. But we would take um, a product on the road at high attended sporting events, music events, and we presented activation marketing, experiential marketing, any of those terms that you want to use. And my partner at some period of time had embezzled almost $1 million from the business. And we left some major brands blowing in the wind, and he disappeared. And I could have done two things at that time, and I felt like doing it. Believe me, this is not some heroic story, but I could either crawl into a hole, turn off my phones, disappear, or I can face the decision again that I made. And we talked about this a little before that we started about accountability, and holding yourself accountable. No one else is responsible for the success or failure of the business than me. They're contributors. It's much like a coach, like a sports coach or a business coach. When your team does well, you want to give all the credit to the players. When the team doesn't do well, the coach needs to take the brunt. And as the CEO and founder of my company, I felt the obligation and the reality. It was my fault, but I made a decision to do business with this person. They embezzled. We had major brands, and if I told you the brands, you would probably have 5 or 10 or 15 products of those in your home right now. Very well established legacy brands. And so I decided to face the music, and my wife and I to this day still call it my walk of shame. And I went to every one of those um, companies' corporate headquarters and got my ass chewed. There's no two ways about it. I took it. It was like going for your punishment. And I owned up to it and I said, "You're absolutely right. I have no defense for what happened. The money that you invested in this business is no longer here. And the circumstances of why that's here have nothing to do with you. It's my responsibility." And I said, "You can take my home. You can sue me under the courthouse, whatever you need to do, and I certainly understand it. I would like to find a creative solution to earn back, if not your trust, at least earn back the value that you've spent on the business." I went everywhere on my own dime to go get my ass chewed over and over and over again. And you know what happened? Nothing. those folks looked at me and said, "We respect your integrity. We understand that things happen in business and in life. We are not gonna forgive you, and we're gonna figure out a way that you're gonna, if we have to take blood from a turnip, we're gonna do it. But we respect you coming to us, not ducking us, not making excuses and dealing with it." And it was the hardest thing I've ever done, not only going and doing that, but also the residual because they wanted work. They wanted me to provide value for them. And so I did over the course of the next 2 years with very little pay, with very little, achievement or accolades because I was correcting a situation that put me in peril, personal peril, financial peril, relationship peril. And, but I will tell you, 2.5 years later, I felt like I'm bulletproof when it comes to dealing with these kind of situations because I did the scary thing, I did the hard thing, and but I did the right thing. And grace was given when maybe it shouldn't have been and probably shouldn't have been by high C-suite people across these major companies. But that taught me humility, it taught me grace, it also taught me hunger, and that business is not perfect. Business relationships aren't perfect, but your ability to navigate them when they're not perfect and come out the other side, a better person, stronger person, a more experienced person. Because I've told this story many times, and it's a cautionary tale in some regards. Be very careful who you choose your partners to be, but it also shows that handling things the right way often have very positive end results. And I would not exchange or change or alter that experience for anything in the world because it's made me who I am today as a leader and as a business person. And it was a very painful lesson, but that was, I can tell you, in your name of your business and your podcast is so profound because the shift, some people have subtle shifts. This was not subtle. This was subtle as an avalanche. And but it was something that I needed. Didn't know that I needed it at the time. I didn't want it, but the net result was, wow, what an amazing experience to live through and to be able to come out the other side, and especially where we are now as a company. And it's just amazing that I was given that gift, and it is a gift. It was a painful gift at the time, but it was a gift.
John, first of all, thank you for sharing that openly because it's a story that we rather not look at sometimes, right? It's not the most pleasant feeling, and I could feel the tension. Like my heart dropped with yours when you shared how all this
It's
unfolded.
still tough to talk about, and it's been over 10 years, but it's still tough to talk.
Yeah, and I can totally relate. I'm imagining like how I mean your heart rate must have been through the roof at the
Yes.
time. Those stress levels to handle that. What stands out to me, yeah, you took ownership and and I have a few more follow up questions here because there's so much curiosity you're stirring up in me about this. Um, What's interesting is your response is so refreshingly different because you're showing that integrity. And I'm sure that's part of your principles, maybe we can talk about that. But I had, just to contrast your example, I had worked with a client in the past. I'm going to protect him. I'm not going to name names, but, um, filing for bankruptcy. And then I encouraged the person. So if you're filing for bankruptcy, do not avoid your existing clients. Don't avoid them. Face them, go there, communicate. You be the messenger. You be the first they hear it from, not the last, right? So it's not the bank that tells them that this is happening or the lawyer. It's you. and now you're going and telling that story while you are still healing your wounds a little bit.
Well, it was interesting because I had made such a drastic change in careers that I felt, as a lot of people do, a bit of imposter syndrome. That was before that was a phrase that's now kind of ubiquitous in space now, but I really didn't know what I was doing. And so the person I brought on as a partner had a pedigree in the space. He was really well known and had done some successful work in this space. And I was like, wow, what a coup to bring him on to our team and to create some opportunity to grow. And to his credit, a lot of those relationships that we had with the business were because of him and his contacts. That being said, the reason that everything else happened was also due to his actions. Now, again, the responsibility falls completely and utterly on me. I went on those road trips alone. He didn't come with me. He didn't talk to me. I didn't After it was exposed by our accountant, never heard from him again. Never saw him. I know where he is. I know what he's doing, and that's okay, but what he did to our business to essentially try to destroy it. And to your point, I had people that had far more experience than me telling me, you need to file bankruptcy, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I took all of that counsel and advice, um, and then I made my own decision because all of those were based on wilting and not dealing with it. And I'm like, no, I'm going to deal with it. And if it comes back to bite me, I know at least I did the right thing. And again, this is not a, hey, look at me, I'm wearing a cape, I'm Superman kind of thing. Uh, but it was more of a, you talked about principles, and I was really fortunate and really blessed, honestly, to be raised by parents that valued commitment, honor. A handshake deal is all you need. And I've learned over time that yes, handshake deals are great, but you need a contract or an agreement. But the principle of a handshake deal was always how we lived our life. And so if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do my best to do it. And I may fall short. And again, these are all conceptual things, but this happened in real time and involved a lot of real money. And so there are real consequences. And, again, it was one of those things where I wouldn't take it back, I wouldn't change anything, but it was really brutal for a, fairly significant period of time. And, you know, and the other thing too, I will say, kind of away from business, is that, I was raising 3 boys. They're all now 3 men in their 20s. And I don't know how I would have dealt with it by saying, "Oh, you just have to stay hidden long enough for people to forget you." That's no way to live, and that's no way to lead, and that's no way to parent or father or any of those things. And it's like, so my failure, if that's a great example for my kids to learn, then so be it. And I have a great relationship with all of them, so I don't think it affected too much in that regard. But yeah, that was a profound event.
Not you said you wouldn't change anything about what you did there, but how did it inform you kind of as a lessons learned, so to speak? How did it inform how you pick your partners or who you do business with?
That's a great question, and there's a I didn't want to lose the essence of who I am, which I'm a very trusting, very loyal person. I like to believe the best in everyone, and in the words of a famous politician now, I will trust but verify, because it is important to protect your intellectual property. It's important to understand more than just a resume of someone you're working with and get to know them before you make any decisions. And I was really taken by this guy's pedigree and his resume, and it was one of those things where I was like, of course he's a great person. Look how successful he's been. And that was something that I've learned, and I still am a trusting person. It took a while to get that back, but it's now, okay, we're going to do this deal, but we're also going to have our attorney draw it up to make sure that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. And it's just a formality and it's here to protect you and me.
What are the principles for your leadership that came out of this that you transferred to your organization? I mean, you talked about your kids and what they see as they do that because that's a kind of behind the scenes look. But then
Right.
there's a company that you're still leading. You're still hiring new people, and they all need to fall in line with these principles that you have, adopted out of all of your experience, I imagine, over the years.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I learned was just to be authentically yourself. What I learned over time is that you're constantly underestimated because of perceptions that people have. And so I kind of took that all shucks attitude about it and really created some amazing deals that before they knew what happened, they had agreed to these terms that I could have only wished for in the best case scenario. It came from a place of authenticity. So that's one thing, is just to be yourself, quit trying to fake it till you make it kind of thing. You brought people into your organization for a reason, not to be a cog in the piece. Get their feedback. Doesn't mean you're always going to adopt everything they want to do. Uh, but they're talented people within your organization right now that you're underutilizing. I'm now doing the proper probing and interaction and engagement with my team to get a sense of who they are, what they're about, what they're passionate about, and use those passions and their skill set to help our team grow and to help our business grow. And the other thing I'm real passionate about when it comes to principles and things that are important is rewarding and acknowledgement. They didn't ask for it. It wasn't announced. It just showed up, and they were like, "What's this about?" And it's like, "Oh, the work you did on this project was really outstanding. Here's a little something extra." And it really ingratiates them to you as a leader, but it also gives them empowerment as a team to take more bold steps and to not be afraid to expand their work with you, whether it's creative, whether it's operational, whether it's administrative. But the thing is that when they're not afraid, I can't tell you how many businesses I've been in and worked in where people operate in a place of fear.
Yeah.
And you know how much you stifle people's creativity, their enthusiasm, their excitement about being there when they are worried about making a freaking mistake? Like, mistakes will be made. Acknowledging those mistakes, correcting those mistakes are all part of the process. But being afraid to make a mistake that you'll lose your job, what kind of work environment is that to be a part of? I want no part of that. I want people to be free to share their ideas. And sometimes I find out that sharing doesn't mean sharing with me. And you know what? That's okay too, because people have dreams and aspirations on their own. And I've helped 2 or 3 people that still work with me on a fractional basis, but they wanted to go do something on their own. And I encourage that because guess what? If they fall on their face, and I don't want them to, but if they fall on their face or they have challenges, or even if they need counsel, first person they're going to come to is me. And I'm going to do everything I can to help them be successful. And so I think this construct that we have as the corporate world doesn't do our employees, our partners, our strategic vendors, whoever it is, any favors because they are so afraid of losing that job or losing that opportunity or losing that gig rather than creating more value.
When I listen to you, what it reminds me of, and I strongly believe in being very intentional as a leader because we shape the culture that we're living in. I strongly believe that a leader has a stronger voice in anything. So when we criticize something, it's perceived much harsher on the other side, and had to have that awareness. But also, what kind of culture do I want to create? What kind of tone do I want to set? Do I want people to be afraid of me and only affirm every every idea I have, right? Every vision I set to, and so I think there is a much better way to lead than just to tell people what they need to do. Delegation isn't just that, and that's when I'm listening to you. That's what I'm hearing there. I manage outcomes, not hours. And so
Exactly.
when I hire people, I tell them, and I've been told by my team too. We love that you hear our contributions and that we have that freedom because I say right up front, I don't manage your hours. I have no desire to. I don't think it's worthwhile. I manage outcomes, and so when we talk, we'll talk about that. And if the outcome is undesirable, we'll find a way around it.
Well, I'm sorry. Well, I want to know what your experience has been with that philosophy. I mean, are you more satisfied than disappointed? More disappointed than satisfied? Tell me your, because I want to hear this because I've been told that that's counterintuitive, and I manage, by the way, the same way you do. But I'm curious to hear your experience with that.
It might seem counterintuitive if you come from a classic corporate world and you fall for that teaching of how you delegate. And I have not always been like that. I'll tell you that too, very honestly. In my earlier years, I've been less relationship driven, and I've just drank the corporate Kool-Aid, right? That's why I formed my company, right? ZARADIGM, to create those paradigm shifts. But yeah, some of the sick behaviors that I feel have evolved over time is kind of this the hierarchy and this concept of what delegation actually is, and that and some managers, when they have not learned to manage well, when they have this misconception of what management actually is, they don't have the leadership skills under their belt yet to know how to mobilize teams without kind of directing in a sense of dictating.
Uh-huh.
You are to do this by then. That's what I said. Why is it not there? Right? We had we had set a cadence, and then the frustration grows. And so that's why I work with leaders to help them develop the leadership tools, the leadership skills, and the
Uh-huh.
communication skills. Very often that are fueling this, that are the vehicle, to lead well
And
in order to get that done. But I've had to your question there, no problem, no bad experience with this approach. Because I would be a hypocrite. But to say that people are not productive if they're not in the room, so okay, then please kill all your offshoring and outsourcing. Like, kill all of that, because you're basically saying you can't offshore. These people are not sitting in the same room. How do you know? No, and not even that. It just we know that um, different people have different motivations. Some people may be better in the office because they thrive on that kind of connection, but some people, maybe some tasks or some type of work might be better done when you give people the freedom to do it anywhere they want. And so when I hire people, I ask them, because not everybody is made for working from home or working remotely. I ask them how they structure their work, how they hold themselves accountable. There is a different style to working from home and motivating you, because there are some people that say, if I work from home, I would just die. I would wither,
yeah.
right? Like an unwatered plant, basically, because they need that social interaction.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that because it's very true that people work differently, and that I think if nothing else, like today, I'm at a co-working space that I come to because it is a place where I can really focus on larger productions that we're doing or editing concepts that we're doing, and not have any distractions. Being creative with your own schedule is something that is a true benefit of being a small business owner. And to your point, I also have a global team, and I'm not interested in punching clocks. And just we say it a little different, but it's the same intent. I can't control outcomes, but I can control activities. And if we have a project list every week that has start dates and end dates, and that's it, and it's their responsibility. And I find in meetings, and again, we only do one meeting a week for half an hour, so the rest of our communication is done with all the gadgets. And I think there's a happy medium. I think people can work that are afforded the opportunity. If you've got productive people that are working from home, why in the world would you want to change that?
Thank you so much, John. It was such a pleasure having you. I'm gonna
Thank
close.
you very much so. It's been an honor.
Thank you.